One of the great struggles in our work has been to have a good, clean operating system for doing client management, and we've had a few presented already. And here's one that's actually done by Grounded Solutions called HomeKeeper, and it's really developed by the groups that are working on shared equity and community land trust um, projects, but there are a number of housing counseling agencies that are currently using it, so it's available now. And we've got Tiffany Ang and Valerie Rogers to present. Oh, and pictures as well. Great. And so welcome, Tiffany and Valerie.
Hi, everyone. I'm
Great.
assuming you can hear me.
Yep.
I'm Tiffany Yang, and I'm the HomeKeeper Program Director. I'm here with my colleague Valerie Rogers, our Marketing and Support Specialist, and we're calling in from Oakland, California, where we work. Thanks, Bruce, for inviting us here today to talk about HomeKeeper. Next slide. So we work for Grounded Solutions Network. We're a national member-based nonprofit. We cultivate communities, equitable, inclusive, and rich in opportunity by advancing affordable housing solutions that last for generations. So HomeKeeper is just one of our programs at Grounded Solutions. We have state and technical assistance programs, grant programs, an annual conference. If you're interested in learning more about land trusts or inclusive communities and policies, you can access more resources on our website at groundedsolutions.org. And if you're interested, I'd be happy to invite my capacity building or state and local policy colleagues to a future call to talk more about land trusts or shared equity, housing, all timely topics that likely intersect with your work. Just let Bruce or Matthew know. Next slide. HomeKeeper is our online client management system we built with folks like you to make your jobs easier and your programs better. So we've been generously supported by the Ford Foundation, the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, the Salesforce Foundation, and more recently the Wells Fargo Housing Foundation, just to name a few. Next slide. So HomeKeeper is built on the powerful cloud-based Salesforce platform, which you may have heard about. What does that mean? If you haven't, just imagine Salesforce is sort of like your smartphone. So there's standard features like contacts and calendars and a global search and the ability to store and attach files to your records. So HomeKeeper is an app on Salesforce, like an app on your phone. It's available on the Salesforce App Exchange, the online app store, and it's built specifically to help programs manage affordable home ownership programs and housing counseling programs. You just need a web browser and an internet. Next. Some of the reasons our users have loved working with HomeKeeper and Salesforce is that you can create your own reports and dashboards or edit hours that we provide. You can make customizations like adding fields and changing layouts pretty easily, and you can connect other apps to enhance your work. So for example, there are apps to pull credit reports or manage grants or volunteers, or even connect to online web forms. So the data comes into your system. Next slide, a bit of HomeKeeper history. So back in 2010, I first started working with 3 community land trusts, all housing counseling agencies, to build HomeKeeper from the ground up with support from the Ford Foundation. And our first public version was released in 2012. It tracked home ownership and housing counseling activities, and it generated the now retired version of the 9902 report. But it wasn't sending data to HUD directly, and our users really pushed us to move in that direction. It took a while, a few years, a few updates, a few more grants to transition to the latest version of 9902, and we finally got HUD approved towards the end of 2016. And we spent most of last year with our early adopters testing our features and sort of refining it. So our early adopters have been pretty happy with HomeKeeper. They've really encouraged us to tell more counselors and advisors. So this year, 2018, we now have the confidence and capacity to share our housing counseling features with others like you. So HomeKeeper today we work with a wide range of organizations and programs, including housing counseling agencies and homeownership programs, nonprofits, and we even work with a few city housing departments running inclusionary housing programs. So organizations are typically managing more than just one type of housing counseling or homeownership program. So we really built HomeKeeper to allow you to standardize management of all of your different housing programs in Salesforce. so that you have the flexibility to segment your information and your layouts for each program. Next slide. Our housing counseling features include everything you'd probably expect from a CMS, and no better than me. Include workshop management, case management, HUD reporting, caseload management, and counselor information and training. So all of the nuts and bolts of what you folks do every day. On the home ownership slide, next slide. On the home ownership side, we have more expansive features and includes the full life cycle of home ownership. So managing a whole property portfolio with subsidies. It follows applicants through intake and eligibility, including like the whole purchase transaction workflow. It also follows them through post-purchase support and monitoring and resale tracking. So the cycle can start all over again. Lastly, HomeKeeper aggregates a subset of the data from our home ownership users. Next slide. Into the HomeKeeper National Data Hub, which we also built and manage. It's an online dashboard that shows a public report of aggregated data from programs that we work with, and then the home ownership programs get individual benchmark reports comparing their progress and outcomes to their peers. So that's a bit of the background of HomeKeeper. At this point, I'm going to pass the presentation over to my colleague Valerie. She will show you a little more detail and give you a sneak peek of some of the features that our users like the most.
Thank you, Tiffany, for the background. I'm Valerie, and I work with the groups that are interested in getting our HomeKeeper app. And I myself am a former HomeKeeper user, so I've been sitting in the same seat as many groups that are looking at it. I'd love to show everybody around some of our features that we've added to our program to make it easier for housing counselors to do their work. So as the screen you're looking at right now shows you that with our program, you're able to quickly register individuals for group sessions in Salesforce, as well as capture that HUD required information that you need to be able to report. Next slide. You are also able to quickly and easily register clients for one-on-one meetings by topic, and are able to have clients with multiple open topics at once, which is a little bit different than some of the older systems. We use a function in Salesforce called the quick action, which makes it a lot easier to add information on your clients without taking your counselors to multiple screens to input the information. Next slide. We also have a quick action where you can enter HUD required data fields in one place, as well as set defaults for fields that you always answer the same way. For example, no to farm worker, no to Colinas, for example. With these default field entries created for your staff, it allows your counselors to complete the information with a lot less clicks. Next slide. HomeKeeper also makes it easy to certify incomes, assets, and debts regardless of the programs your clients are in. The program also includes formula fields, which will run the AMI for you and let you know how much the client can afford in a monthly mortgage payment. Next slide. If you have clients that are returning for additional services at a later date and their demographics change due to a change in household or income, HomeKeeper also allows you to clone their original client file to update what you need to while still keeping that information on the original client file for tracking purposes. That way you don't have to start from scratch with clients that are coming back in for new services, and the files can still be connected. Next slide. On the client service file, you can also see a snapshot of the client's financial health. HomeKeeper allows you to track client financial information, including itemized incomes, assets, and debts, as well as any funding a client might be applying for as part of their housing counseling journey. Next slide. We know that counselors are always the most important staff person when using our program for HUD 9902 reporting. So we did create a counselor homepage, which allows you to see your workload and current client information all in one place. You can now also track all of your client certifications in one place so that when you have a HUD audit, you're not having all of your staff scrambling and running around to figuring out what certification classes people went to over the course of the year. Next slide. HomeKeeper also allows counselors to see which clients you are reporting to HUD and decide which ones you need to report. We found often that counseling and homeownership programs have programs that are not eligible for HUD reporting credit. So we did want to create the flexibility for you to be able to track clients, but not necessarily have to be able to report them to HUD. Next slide. For our counselor screen, you'll also be able to see the amount of days since you last spoke with clients, which can enable you to follow up with clients that are hitting that 2-month mark, that 2-month follow-up mark, and then also close out clients who you might not have heard back from for over 6 months, ensuring that you're reaching out to clients and none of them are falling through the cracks. Next slide. This is my favorite feature of our system. It is our HUD completeness prompts. On many of our page layouts, we include a prompt to let you know if any of the HUD required fields are missing, so that at every stage of the data entry process, you'll know if you are missing things. You can then quickly click into any file that might be missing information to address the data completeness, so that by the time you are submitting your quarterly reports, everything looks perfect. Next slide. And then also, we wanted to make it so that counselors could also update multiple files at one time. So we use the functionality in Salesforce called list views, so that you can update things like the status of a class registration. So in this example, we're showing you how we're able to update 8 clients that registered for our group classes. Next slide. And change all of those 8 selected records from registered to attendance with the click of a button. Next slide. And then you can also see how these recent clients now show up as attended for your classes. So this is a really great way to be able to update things very quickly across multiple records. Next slide. HomeKeeper out of the box also includes dashboards that allow you to see breakouts by client demographics, which makes it easier for your additional staff beyond your housing counselors to be able to report on those demographics for things like funding reports or the annual reports you might have to do. Next slide. You can also see what topics most clients are coming to visit you for and what kinds of impacts you're providing on clients' lives. In addition to these these dashboards that we have shown you today, we also have other dashboards which show very visually rich information on how your program is doing. All the dashboards on HomeKeeper can be customized as well as emailed to users based on whatever schedule you choose. This is great if your boss might ask you questions often and ask you the same questions. You can create dashboards to then send to them weekly and monthly so that they can get that information very quickly without having to ask you every week. Next slide. So in addition to all the features that we have, we really include a robust support program to ensure that our users are successful. We have a user support forum where we write up resources to questions that we get asked often, and also include visual how-tos for many topics, including how to create reports and dashboards, how to create custom fields, how to update page layouts, and more. Next slide. So we also, sorry, it looks like it's gone a couple of slides ahead. Perfect. So we also host monthly office hours where you can get questions answered, as well as we have monthly new user Q&As where your new staff can learn the HomeKeeper ropes. Next slide. I know we went through a lot of these features really quickly today, so if you're interested in learning a little bit more, we can always do a tailored demo. So you can just let us know. Our email is included as well. We also have a public demo on May 16th and an e-learning service coming up in June. And then lastly, for those of you that feel like HomeKeeper might be a good fit for your organization, we also have a few steps on how to join HomeKeeper. We do have an application process, which is pretty quick. And then our annual fees for HomeKeeper include 2 fees, a one-time onboarding fee, which covers installation, setup, and training. We also have an annual fee, which covers upgrades to HomeKeeper and ongoing support. If you decide to move forward with HomeKeeper, our staff will work to configure, install, and train your staff on how to use the program. I'm now going to pass it on to Tiffany, and she's going to talk a little bit more about our users and then open everything up for questions.
Super. Well, that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm excited to be able to share all of this with you. Certainly, if any of it seems like something you folks would be interested in, do let us know. We look forward to sharing HomeKeeper with more users. And actually, now's a really good time to start planning for the next fiscal year. October 1st, which will be here before we know it. It's actually the most logical time to switch. You can switch other times, but that's the most logical time. So yeah, that's it.
Are you all ready for some questions?
Happy to take them. Yeah.
All right. Someone said great presentation and asked if HomeKeeper is capable of reporting to NeighborWorks. If so, how many NeighborWorks organizations are using HomeKeeper?
We have a handful of NeighborWorks organizations that use HomeKeeper and some from the very beginning. And we have 3 that are reporting to NeighborWorks from HomeKeeper Housing Counseling organizations. So we built what we call a reporting pathway. It means that they've worked with a consultant who is actually another HomeKeeper user from a NeighborWorks organization who's set it up a way for housing counseling NeighborWorks organizations to make the customization. So it's not out of the box because not everyone is a NeighborWorks organization, but for those folks, they've been able to get what they need to do the quarterly reporting. But I would say in general, they're reporting the housing counseling homeownership information, not all of the everything that goes to NeighborWorks quarterly.
Great. Is there any limit on the number of users for HomeKeeper?
If that's a price question, no. So we have a one-time, like the site license is for everybody at your organization, no matter how many users you want to add. Salesforce allows each 501c3 to have 10 free at no cost licenses, and after that, Salesforce charges for each additional individual user. I think it's something like 74% off the market value, though. It's deeply discounted for nonprofits.
Okay, and you may have just covered this, but do you need to have Salesforce as well, or is there an additional fee for Salesforce, or is the $3,500 startup and annual cost cover the Salesforce cost?
Yeah, I'm going to let Valerie answer that one.
So you would need to get Salesforce to use our program, but part of our onboarding process, if you don't already have Salesforce, is we help you with the application process to apply for those 10 free licenses. And when you get Salesforce, you also get access to their free app as well, which includes donation and volunteer tracking. So you would get the Salesforce side of things for free. Our app just has a onboarding and an annual fee.
Great. Can HomeKeeper do cumulative 9902 reports for multiple quarters, is the question.
So each quarterly report in 9902 report is cumulative. So even though they call it your quarter 3 report, it has to include quarter 1 and quarter 2. So if that's what the question is referring to, yes. And that's why it's most logical to switch it at the beginning of a new fiscal year, although you could do a manual entry over the bridging years that you're transitioning.
Okay.
If you have more questions, I'd be happy to get into the weeds with anyone.
I think
but
that
yes,
that
the
answered it.
9902 report is cumulative.
Someone asked if you could demo the 9902 submission process. I think I'm just going to have them reach out to you directly. Does that sound right?
Yes, we would be happy to demo that auto magic whenever you reach out to Valerie.
All right. Can HomeKeeper send letters to customers via email directly from the system?
Yeah, you can set up with Salesforce. It has the functionality to be able to create mail merges as well as templated emails. So if you're following up with clients and sending things like notes from your last call, you can update and create templates so that as you're following up with those clients, it's sending them kind of very similar kind of emails, which you can then tailor to the specific client.
And someone asked, are they able to migrate client data from our current CMS system, our CMS?
So that's a great question, and one I get asked a lot. Well, a lot of the systems that are currently in place, like Counselor Max, make it really hard to pull the information out. We can do some quick data migration if you can pull things like your client information, contacts into spreadsheets, and if you have a list of your group sessions already, those are things that we can import. But based on the way the other systems are set up, it's been really, that's also why we're suggesting people start at the beginning of the year, so because many of our users are starting fresh with HomeKeeper.
Great. Somebody asked about pricing options for intermediaries. I think I'm going to also refer them directly to you, unless you want to get into that now.
That would be great. We actually have a new funding source to work directly with intermediaries. Be happy to share more. Just reach out to me.
Great. And somebody asked which intermediaries are using HomeKeeper now?
Which intermediaries? We don't have an intermediary. Oh, Vermont Housing Conservation Board is a statewide funding source. So most of the community land trusts, many of which are housing counseling agencies, are using HomeKeeper. So yeah, I guess we have one Vermont Housing Conservation Board.
Great. And somebody asked if we can circulate the slides. Is that fine?
Yeah, I can share a PDF version that doesn't have these, that's formatted slightly better.
Great, thank you. And then the last question, I think you kind of covered this, but if you could just quickly go over the cost for Salesforce.
Definitely. So Salesforce for nonprofits is free for the first 10 users. So as a platform, you would get it for free. If you have that 11th user, they do charge a price per license, and it's very discounted. So for the platform itself, it's free. For HomeKeeper, which is our app, there is an onboarding cost of $2,500 for the first year, and an annual cost of $1,000. So as a platform for Salesforce, they really love nonprofits, and that's why they do want to provide their platform for free.
Great. We had a couple more questions trickle in. Those will be the last couple. Someone asked, they're already using Salesforce. Is it pretty seamless for them to kind of migrate the information in?
Yes, it does save us a couple of steps. So if you already have Salesforce, we can get you up and running a little bit quicker. With Salesforce, if you are applying for licenses as a new org, it does take a week or two. So you would save a week or two on the onboarding process if you already have Salesforce.
Great. And then the last question, someone asked if for technical assistance, do they have to buy blocks of time, or how does technical assistance work?
No, that annual price you pay does cover the ongoing support and technical assistance, and we do have those monthly office hours where you can drop in, and a ticketing system where if you have questions, we try to answer those pretty quickly.
And I just to add as a final thought, we do have one more person on our team, Cheryl. We have a full-time support and training specialist who is routinely answering questions and writing up articles for our support forum.
Great. Well, thank you so much, team. That's great.